Okay, let's see what kind of impact equity really has. Because so far, if you look in the equity column, actually, first of all, let's make sure we have the 30-year amortization table open, the first one we did. So make sure you have that file open. Pause if you need to open it. You'll know it's the 30-year one, probably because there'll be a 30 right here. And also, if you were to scroll down, it would go down to row 368. Remember, that's 360 months, which is 30 years. So make sure you have this open. And when we first taught equity, we taught it as, you can see here, B2 minus F9. So what that really is the amount you bought the house for, which is also obviously the amount that it's worth. If that's what you paid for it, then that makes it worth that much. And then we subtracted how much we still owe the bank. So the balance on the loan was still very, very high. We barely shaved off not even $500 after one payment, so we still owed $179,697. So that means we really only had $302 of equity in the house. But if you scroll down maybe a year or so, we taught you that we were still using B2, which is still that $180,000. Now the thing is with houses, mathematically that makes sense, and we really can't predict what the house is going to be worth. But when we learned equity with cars, you have this graph on some old notes that you have, but when you learned it with automobiles, you were paying off the car loan, this blue loan here, so you're owing less and less every month, but at the same time the value of the car was sweeping down, because cars turn into junk after a certain amount of time. The difference with home equity, homes are great investments. You pay down the mortgage over 30 years. Notice the x-axis is a lot bigger here, 5, 10, 20, up to 30 years. So you're paying off the mortgage, but as you're doing that, the value of the house is going up versus cars that go down. So because houses last a long time, they don't drive around and bump into one another and rust and don't have moving engine parts, right? Houses sit in one spot. They're built of a cement foundation and wood and metal and roofs, and they last with a little bit of upkeep. They outlast humans. So that means their value goes up over time. So as you're paying the mortgage down, the value is going up, and then every month and every year that gap widens and widens and widens, and you could have a huge amount of equity, which means that's money in your pocket if you were to sell your house, refinance, if you wanted to move, if you wanted to pay off other debt, you could borrow your own money back that you have in the house, where there's a little bit of equity in cars, but nothing like houses. Houses are huge because one of the lines is going up and one's going down. So let's make that adjustment on the sheet. Let's go to click on column G. And then once you've clicked on the G at the top, not down here, but the actual G, go over to insert column left. There we go. And I'm going to change this one to home value. This is our new one. So just to make it stand out, I'm going to make it green because that's the new one. So we inserted a column to the left, and now we have a home value. Because it's not going to be $180,000. Now, it doesn't necessarily go up steady every single month. We can't predict that. We can just take a long-term average over 10, 20, or 30 years and say, on average, what does I bought my very first house, and the next year it was worth almost double in 1 year. I just happened to buy it at the right time. The next house I bought, I owned it for 14 years, and it barely went up at all. So times change, but over a long period of time, over a 30-year mortgage, we can just estimate perhaps 0.5% per month. That would be like 6% a year. That's a fair estimate. So the first column, we need that 180,000 up here. So we're going to go equals $B $2, which is going to assign this. And the dollar signs make it freeze and not take that with it. So times 1.005. What that really means is the full amount, 100%, and then another 0.5%. So 1.01 would be 1%, so 1.005 is 0.5%. We hit equals, And so the house went up $900 that first month. Now we can't drag yet. We have to make a second one and then we can drag. Because now I'm going to take the one above it. So underneath that, hit equals. Click on the cell above it, which is that 180,900, otherwise G9. And we're going to multiply that by 1.005. Now that we're out of that first cell, we can take the second cell only. Click on the second cell, grab the corner, and autofill all the way down. Or as Mrs. Clarkson taught some groups, you can double click right on that right there, on the corner, the little blue corner. If you double click on it, it's the same thing as dragging it all the way to the bottom. And if you go down here, this looks crazy, but in 2051, that house might be worth over $1 million. I mean, no one would think that a house that was bought for $60,000 in 1980 would be worth $500,000 now. So as crazy and wild as those numbers look, it's feasible, it's possible. But now we have to adjust the equity column. So equity is always, let's start over here with the first one. So in H9, we're going to go equals the amount the house is worth, which is G9 minus how much you owe on it, F9. So equals G9 minus F9. And that'll go up a little bit. And then we're going to re-drag or double click. You can drag all the way to the bottom, or you can do the shortcut where you get right on that box and double click. And it looks like if something's already in there, it makes you drag. So I'm going to drag over the top of all those old ones all the way to the bottom, row 368. I always go too far. There you go. So look at the equity you would have. And equity is how much you keep in your pocket if you sell it that day. So even after, let's see, 2021, let's say 10 years later. That's not that long. Let's go to March of 2031. 10 years later, you have $192,000 in your pocket. Now you can sell the house for $329,000, but you still have to pay the bank the $137,000 that you still owe. But that still leaves you with almost $200,000 in your pocket. So again, this has to do with this chart right here. As the value goes up and the mortgage loan goes down, your equity gets huge. You get to keep all of that money. And you can pay off your house completely. Like I said, you can borrow the money back again. Some people use it to improve their house, so then it will be worth more money. So it kind of feeds the beast and makes it even worth more money. They might put new windows in, or put an addition on, or redo the floors. And how do people afford to make huge improvements like that? A lot of time they borrow the equity in their house. Or you can spend it on a trip to go around the world if you want. That's not an investment, but you can do that if you want. Pay off credit cards, pay for college, or move and put that down on another house. So now you can have $200,000, or if you bought it around this time, you could have $200,000 toward your next house. Or if you wait even longer, $300,000 toward your next house. But that's the real impact of equity. Now again, it doesn't go up as cleanly straight as this. Sometimes it goes bad economy, good economy, bad economy, good economy, but over time it will go up. So turn in your notes that you added this to, and have a great weekend.